following program contains language and subject matter that you may consider unsuitable for children. Parental discretion is advised.
Greetings, Earthling. His Highness the Jackals.
The Jackal.
I'm going to pass the reins to Mr. Jackal, the new king of radio.
I think Jackal's Latino. I'm not sure, but he'll give it to you. Hold on a second here.
The Jackal.
I want to welcome everybody who's checking in on the show, listening from wherever you might be. It doesn't matter if you're in the U.S., if you're in somewhere in Asia, if you're in somewhere in the Russian area, the dirty, evil Russians. Doesn't matter if you're there, if you're here, if you're in Australia. It doesn't matter where you're listening from, even in Uranus or another off-world planet, somewhere in the distant galaxy or the solar system. Doesn't matter. If you're listening, thank you for being here. We appreciate it. And we're live on this beautiful February 16, 2020. My vision's clear, and with me tonight, finally, he's made it out to a show on time, kinda. We're a couple of minutes, but it's okay. The one and only Brandon, a.k.a. Detox. What's up, buddy? How you been?
Jackal, what's happening, man?
Well, doing a whole lot better than you now that you're here. So I could bounce some ideas off of you today. How's your week been?
Oh, I feel touched, man. Thanks for having me. Doing good, man. Doing good. Had a little busy weekend. Had to work, get caught up on some projects, but glad I made it. And looking forward to all these ideas you're going to bounce off my head.
Oh, I got something to bounce off your head this week, buddy boy. We got some interesting stuff to talk about, news related, which has been posted on my personal blog. If you guys want to follow along to what me and Detox are going to talk about tonight, check out angelespinal.com. That's right, that's the website. The news on there from now on is what we're going to read on the show when we have, topics that I want to get to. So if you ever want to read on, and, I made it a whole lot easier. I used to have people go through like Facebook, Twitter, all kinds of different areas to try to get to the news that we're going to do on the show. Streamlined it, man. That's what it's all about. Make it easy for the listeners, for all of you. So now, very simple. Go to angelespinal.com. Or, it takes it to the same place if you feel more comfortable with using my stage name, thejackal.com. Either one is going to take you directly to my main website. And the news of the last 4 days is what we're going to talk about in a few minutes. But I want to, before I get to that, because that's a little bit more serious, and we're going to, really dissect that in the second hour, more or less. There's a couple of things I wanted to get to, and we also have some big news, Detox. You ready for this?
Oh, yeah, I'm ready, man.
Okay. Kaiser, our good buddy, is going to be on with us in, about 20 minutes, more or less, when we come back from break. And he's going to be on with us for the rest of the show tonight. We're going to have a special evening with Kaiser, the three of us. And he's got big news to announce. And it's going to be something which is going to be a whole lot of fun, I think. In a castle far away. That's from the Karate Kid Part 2, right? Is that the song? Am I wrong on that, Detox, or am I right?
You're right on it. I think you're right on it.
Is that how the lyrics go? In the castle far away. Something like that.
That old Chicago song or whatever they were. Yeah.
Was that Chicago, or was that like one of the, Peter Corelli, whatever his name is, and he just went solo for that?
Oh, yeah. I think it was Peter, Katera, yeah.
Katera, I was close.
Yeah, I couldn't stand that guy. Sounds like he's constipated while he's singing. I don't know.
Well, it's
for love.
Yeah, because he tries to hit those high falsetto notes, like do it all for love, and it sounds better than when I do it. That's for damn sure. But Yeah, I could see where you were coming from with the bowel movement issues. A lot of those folks have that kind of. The only falsetto that I really could say I've always loved, the male singer wise anyway. There's two. The obvious one, King of Pop, Michael Jackson. And it was like he didn't even force it. It was just he had a little voice. And it was okay when the children slept over. It was very innocent. He had, tiny little voice. And his voice was just naturally, falsetto. But the other person whose voice I loved, and again, only two that I've really, in my life said, that dude could sing. The Bee Gees. Now, I'm a huge fan of the Bee Gees. I don't know how you feel about the Bee Gees. Any thoughts?
I like the Bee Gees at first, but I don't know, down the road it started sounding like ultra feminine. I don't know what it was during that time, but
that's the falsetto that I'm talking about. That, if for whatever reason, when a guy sings falsetto, everybody's like, oh, he must be one of those alphabet people.
Some of them were.
No, that's the thing. And they weren't. They were all brothers. And I don't mean that how black folks mean brothers. No, I mean like they were actually siblings, like the Jackson 5. There was, I think, 4 of them. They were all brothers. It wasn't like any of them were like lovers or anything like that. And the funny thing is, 3 of them were in the group, the original Bee Gees. Like I said, I'm a fan. Barry Gibbs, Robin Gibbs, and Maurice Gibbs are the original members of the Bee Gees. And then they had a 4th brother, Andy. And Andy was not a member of the group, but he had a really good voice. And when the group kind of took a little bit of a hiatus after having hit record after hit record after hit record, they were like, all right, let's take a break. But the fans, remember, this is back in the 70s and early 80s when they were like the shit, And back then the fans were really into the Bee Gees. So they had this idea Andy wants to sing. He's a good singer. He has a great voice. He kind of sounds like Barry was the lead singer of the group. And they came up with some music with him, and he had actually his own career on the side, and he was a big hit for a while, had a couple number 1 hits. The Bee Gees were huge, dude. I know that, you don't go back that far with your love for dance pop, and, we're both more modern 80s, 90s kids, you and I. But, I tend to go back a little bit further sometimes. I love, the Beatles, the Monkees. They were a big influence on the Beatles, by the way. You know that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they were definitely kind of a model, a driving force for him.
Something like that. Really a driving force? How'd you get that?
I think it was just the style, the tempo, the way the music was composed back then. I think it set a template for some of the music that followed.
Well, the funny thing is I was actually joking because the Beatles came out before the Monkees. The Monkees are actually a made-up group. That's a whole different story. But
Monkees.
The Monkees. Hey, we're the Monkees. A lot of retro pop tonight on the show.
Was there a TV show too?
That's what it was. The Monkees were the first really manufactured, purely manufactured group. They weren't even musicians. For the most part, they were all actors. But they had dabbled in music. A couple of them really liked, doing music. Michael Nesmith, the lead singer of the Monkees, the main guy, the one with the little green hat, he actually was a really good musician. He went on and did records, and he's had a very successful career, in that genre of music that he does, aside from the Monkees. It's funny, he was the last one that ever wanted to come back for the reunions and stuff. He never participated. So when they broke up and years later they came back, it was always 3 of them. It was Davey, Mickey, and Peter. The 3 of them. Without, the main guy, Mike Nesmith. And, it was cool, you know, I saw some of like the reunion tours and stuff, and, you know, he only agreed to come back when Davy Jones died. He passed away several years ago, and then something happened. I remember reading that he went to the funeral, and he kind of had this discussion with the other members who were still alive, and they were like, oh man, you know, we should have done a tour when he was alive with you and this and that, and it kind of led them to like have this, you know, moment where they like all came together, and next thing you know, they went on like a little tour, and they were on TV, and I was like, holy crap, they look like the guy from like, what do you call it? The Tales from the Dark Side. Remember the Creep Keeper?
Tales from the Crypt, yeah.
Yeah, Tales from the Crypt, that dude. They all kind of like were starting to look like that. Like they were old, man. And of course, Davy Jones was now gone, and he was like the teeny bopper or heartthrob one all the girls liked. You know, like I guess, you know, like you said, the cute one of the band. And, it was funny because, you know, he died, and that's not the funny part, but, you know, he passed away, and now you're looking at the rest of them, and it's like the monkeys with walkers or something. That's what they should be called, because they're ancient. But, you know, I'll tell you what, Mike, he's still up there, and he can still play. He's a heck of a musician. If you're into the genre, I mean, you know, it's different than even the monkeys from back then. When you hear solo stuff, it's more like old school rock and like some folk, you know, music and, you know, stuff like that. It's not like the Monkees, you know. But it's cool because they did reunions and they're still going at it. I love seeing old bands do that. Like the Rolling Stones are still touring, for crying out loud. They're like all like, what, 1,000 each?
Yeah, they've got to be at least 1,200 years old apiece.
I mean, I think if you add the age of every member of the Rolling Stones, you literally can go back to the age of Jesus. I'm just saying. It's very close.
They knew him personally.
Probably went to the same high school as Judas. Maybe Jesus. I don't know. But the Rolling Stones are still going at it. The Bee Gees, man, it's sad because like all the brothers are dead except for like Barry. He's the only one that's still kind of, you know, going in strong and doing his tour. But they were all married, had kids, you know, like they're normal dudes, man. It's just, you know, they had that falsetto that all the girls loved, and all the guys were like, oh, they're gay. Yeah, for sure. You know, look at that, skinny pants. Who would have thought, huh? Now skinny pants are in.
Not for you and me, man. I'm still too big for those.
No. Nobody wants to see this junk in skinny pants. That's just, no. You don't want to see that. No. My producer Pete in the back here is like, yeah, I want to see that. No, you don't want to see that, dude. You just, trust me, you don't want to see it. Maybe in a couple of years, but not right now. What do you think?
No, I'm good on that, man.
You're good?
I mean, if I can't even put my fist through the pants, we can't do it, man.
No.
I'm not
I'll tell you what though, you do rock a hell of a Star Trek uniform. You do. I've seen the photos, the incriminating evidence. I have it. It's amazing. And it's something I wanted to get to before we go to break here and get Kaiser on the line in about 10 minutes. I wanted to get your take because I know you're a huge Trek fan and you weren't here last week, and I wanted to ask you about it. But I wanted to get your hot take on Picard. Have you been watching?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have.
Okay, I'm going to give you the floor because you're the resident voice inside the Jackals' head who is a Trekkie, like a full-blown Trekkie. Like, you know more about Star Trek than anybody else that I know, and myself included. I'm the Star Wars nerd, you're the Trekkie guy. So, give me your hot take. What do you think of Picard?
Hey, attention all sci-fi fans, all Trekkies, all listeners on the station. Guys, Picard has been a little disappointing, not as disappointing as Discovery, but Patrick Stewart, I mean, I do appreciate the man. We all grew up with him, but he's definitely aged quite a bit. The story of Picard is moving way too slow. We're not having to reestablish his character. We got to move forward. But what's happening in the show? Nothing's going on. It feels like I'm watching what show was that? That was about nothing. Seinfeld. It's like a show there's nothing going on, and we've put together this cast there's no cohesion. It's full of sarcasm. Different levels of sarcasm from each of the crew. Yeah, I know it's 2020. It's not the 90s anymore. It's all about special effects. Okay, we're getting that, but the story, the goal, I mean, it's not doing a good job keeping my interest. I'm going to keep watching the show. We've gone through 4 episodes, but still nothing substantial has happened in the show. The last episode that premiered last Thursday, I almost fell asleep. In all my years of watching TV, period, I felt like I was going to fall asleep. We did reintroduce Miss Jerry Ryan, the lovely Jerry Ryan is 7 of 9. She appeared at
so hot.
Yes, and she still looks hot today, folks. Just always in love with it, yes, sir. But she appeared in the last 30 seconds of the episode. I know she'll take on a more permanent role probably in the next episodes, but the whole concept behind Picard it's not flowing with me. For those of you that are Star Trek fans, we got a little issue with these Romulans. I'm not grasping why we got Romulans on Earth in this series. You might as well just say welcome Dominion changelings, the shapeshifter people. You might as well welcome them too while you're at it. But I need something a little more from the writers. It's not keeping my interest.
Wow, I'm shocked because I absolutely love what I've seen so far, and I cannot be further away from your take on that. Especially on what's happened on the show so far. I think they've done a lot. Remember the main girl, the Data, female Data, she blew up, and then there's another one Data and before. I like the mirror effect where the first girl is kind of like the decoy and the second girl is the real one that Picard has to go find. And Data was the original one and then before was the fake one. So kind of like that kind of connection. I really like the whole dream sequence that they're having, with him and Data, kind of waking him up. It's almost like he's sending a message through the ether, through some form of a spiritual connection what he has with Picard. Again, I completely have a different take on what's going on with the writing too. Compared to Discovery, I mean, this is a much better series.
Oh, and, yeah, it is. Despite everything I said, it's definitely better than Discovery by a long shot.
And you know what? I like the whole, fact that the Federation's kind of at a point where they're cursing and they don't care, and there's a whole, more of a non-peaceful Federation in this one. There's conflict within the Federation, and they have, this grudge with Picard because of the events. I don't want to give too many spoilers away, but, the events that caused, what happened as the main theme of, his backstory of what's been going on with the last, 20 years. I like that backstory, and I like the way they told it quick. They didn't, go and, exaggerate how long they took to explain it. It was they dropped real quick, this happened. It was during the interview on one of the episodes. She started, giving him a really hard time in the interview, the reporter, and she just started going at him with this and this and this and this, and it just explains the whole backstory without having to see it, somehow. It just, and now you're seeing Picard that he's going through post-traumatic stress. Kaiser coming up pretty soon, post-traumatic stress. That's a big topic for him. But, he's kind of going through that because of those events, that happened And, he feels guilty because he couldn't save all these, these lives. And, even though he saved a lot of lives, he couldn't save them all. I also like the interaction with him and the people he lives with in France, so it's kind of cool. They brought it down to earth. And, that's cool. I think the interaction is pretty neat. Because it's different. It's not like it's all the same people from the next generation, joining them. It's a little bit different. The ship is not the Enterprise. It's that they had to get it on the down low basically. And to me, I think the series so far, well, it's been a little bit slow. Remember, this is not the next generation. So I'm gonna have the same kind of speed or anything like that. And the Picard is not a spring chicken anymore.
Now, I think you mentioned something about how times change through the series. I think we are seeing a more paranoid side of the Federation at this point.
Yep.
Because they're still licking their wounds. They just came out of the Dominion War. They just came out of repeated Borg attacks. I did read some of the novels over the last several years since Nemesis. There, between Voyager coming home, there was several Borg attacks. There's a lot going on. Now, I kind of think Picard, excuse my language, I think Picard was kind of BSing during one of the flashback moments. I think it was the third episode where he offered his resignation. I think they asked for his resignation. He didn't offer, they asked for it. But, I know he wanted to soften the blow, but I understood when that Starfleet Admiral, that one old lady, I can't remember her name he was talking to, but, it wasn't a decision that came lightly to stop this rescue effort. For one thing, the Romulans are their own empire, so I don't know why they're asking for people's help, and especially they've spent years trying to invade us, trying to fracture our alliance, and then as a result, she stated that 14 planets within our alliance was threatening to withdraw completely. To me, that's substantial in a situation like that. That's almost like if the U.S. went to aid some country, then we had, a half a dozen states threatening to withdraw. I mean, it's almost similar to that. I don't know if that's permitted, but
it kind of touches on the whole Brexit thing, perhaps. He is of the British descent. Jean-Luc, is he British or French? French.
Well,
right?
Yeah, he's French descent in the show,
right?
But in real life, he's British.
Yeah, Sir Patrick Stewart is a British gentleman. Is that the worst British accent you've ever heard? That was pretty bad, right?
It was up there.
Yeah, well. With that said, folks, I tried. We're going to be back in a few minutes here with Kaiser and his big news for the show. We'll be right back. Drop la bomba. That's right. Drop la bomba. Okay, we're back. Back on Inside the Jackals Head on PSN-radio.com. That is from the legendary Neil Rogers media bag, which the late Neil Rogers, if you're not familiar with his show, look him up. He's a hysterical on-air personality, and that's called La Bomba, meaning the bomb. And now joining us on the show, he is La Bomba himself, Mr. Kaiser. Welcome to Inside the Jackal's Head, sir. How are you doing this fine evening?
I'm doing outstanding, Jeffy. And how's it going, Brandon? Just letting everybody know there's a small segment that I'll be having.
Hold on. Okay. Hold on. Two things is going on there. One, I don't know what happened. Your audio went and started popping. And two, which really should have been one, but I said it backwards because I'm dyslexic sometimes. You called me Jaffe. What's up with that?
No. I did say that, but never mind.
You did say that, and it's on record.
It because you said Jackal. You said Jackal, and it brought me to Jaffe. It's a mind slip. Anyways.
Not hating on Jaffe. That's our buddy. That's our friend. That's our pal.
It is our buddy. It is.
Shout out
It
to
is.
him. I love his show, but I'm Jackal. He's Jaffe.
I know that, brother. It was as soon as it came out, I was trying to recover by going inside the Jackal's head. So, anyways, it just got caught too quick. It would have came out a little better. Anyways,
This is Kaiser, right? This is
Kaiser, and he just got a little tongue tied when you said Jackal, and it starts with a J, and there was a little screw up in my brain. I'm 51. Give me a break on that. That's my first senior moment on the show.
I understand. They're like, he has a J in his name. I have a J in my nickname, and we're smoking J's are fun. I smoked a J before the show. I'm sure you might have done one. It's all good, brother. I ain't mad at you. Like the song says. But just remember, I'm Jackal.
Yeah, I know Jackal. Anyway,
right, good man.
Getting
Much
back
love.
to it, inside the Jackal's head is everybody should picture out in Radio Land. This is theater for the mind, and I'm just a subcomponent in the Jackal's head. It's things that he thinks about, things that are important, and because of that, he invited me to come on inside the Jackal's head to have.
I don't like the way you say that. Hold on, let me cut you off again. It sounds funny when you say coming inside the Jackal's head.
Oh man! Today.
You know what show you're on, my friend. You gotta be careful with your words here. Let me set this up for you real careful here.
Right,
let me throw you the softball before you try to hit the grand slam. Hold on. Let me throw you a curveball here. Don't go all Houston Astros on me and try to get like signals and stuff. Hold on. Here we go. You're gonna be joining the show now on a full-time basis on the little segment called
Kaiser's Korner.
That's correct, and this is going to be something that we're going to, have a lot of fun with. You're as long as you get my name right, we're going to be good. We're not going to have any problems. Yeah, we're good. But yeah, tell the audience about Kaiser's Korner and what we're going to do with your segment here, and each week what your role is going to be inside the Jackal's head. There's not going to be no coming. You're just going to be a voice. Inside the Jackal's head. That's right.
Yeah, there's definitely never any coming in Jackal's head. So
not on or in. There's, like I'm saying, like, go.
All right. So the purpose of it is basically a 5 or so minute rant, and then join in a little bit, and then disappear on what I saw relative to the week preceding, and just my thoughts or reflections on something, and bring it up in a little humorous way, just like we started out today. There may be some slip-ups. I'm an old man, and probably the oldest on this show. So just look for my perspective, and as always, you can find more in-depth videos in Kaiser's Castle, which is on my YouTube Sword.9. And sometimes, since you mentioned Jaffe earlier, or I did, however, you might hear me on WPRPN. So that's pretty much it. But I'm obliged to weekly segments, and I will give those to the Jackal only. Angel Espino.
I like the way you say that, Angel Espino.
That's more my Dago, my Italian coming out, paisan.
I was thinking more like robot than Italian, but close enough. I mean, robots, Italians,
Yeah,
It's funny though, because my dad's side, third cousin removed from one of his ex-roommates back in 1928, they are from Italy.
Right.
So there's an Italian to my name. And the name actually was not Espino. This is a funny thing, and this is actually a true thing. The actual name was Espina.
Mm.
But
do tell.
There's a funny story behind how it went from Espina to Espino back in, I think it was the if I remember the story right, because it was told to me a long time ago. It was somewhere in the 1950s, I believe. There was a record mix-up. And remember, guys, this is way before the internets. There was no floppy disks or computer desktops or laptops, tablets, phones of smart devices, none of that. It was very analog and paper and pencil. I know you kids out there don't know what a pencil is, but it's one of those long sticks that has lead in it, and you write with it. I know that writing, it's kind of a new concept for kids. But back then, they kept everything on paper. And somewhere along the lines, one of my ancestors from that time period, one of my great-grandfathers, I believe it was my grandfather, or I think it was my great-grandfather, if I remember the story right, when he was born, they accidentally put the O instead of the A at the end of his name. And again, everything was by paper. Nobody in the family noticed. When they got the record, it kind of looks the same when it's, not written in capital. And birth certificates, most of them were in Cuba written, like very sketchy. And after, the paper was very cheap. After a while, it just kind of deteriorated. I have my actual birth certificate, and it's like, that's from the 70s, and it's very cheap, very deteriorated. So nobody noticed. And I think it was like sometime like when he was an adult, like maybe 30 years later or something like that, 20 years later, he went into the hospital and they couldn't find his records because it was mislabeled. They had him under Espino when he was really Espina. And that's when they discovered the mistake. And he was like, well, you know what? Screw Espina. I never liked that junk anyway. I think I'm going to go with Espino. That sounds pretty good. And he kind of
it gives it a more Mediterranean flavor.
Yeah. He was like, you know what? Screw it. But it's funny because if I ever meet anybody named Espina, there's a better chance that their family, like somewhere down the line in the, the long bloodlines of the Espina from Cuba. So there's some chance I might meet some family member with that last name compared to Espino, which is actually the only one I've ever known. And that boggles my mind because I really don't have that family tree that connects fully to the Espino, but there is an old Spanish-Cuban actor named Clavillazo, which I don't have no idea how to say it in English, but his name was Espino also, and he's part of the family circle. And he was like really famous in Latin America. And I think his nickname was also like Tintan or something like that. And he's part of my family, like distant cousin. And that's my claim to fame. That's like in the Cantinflas era. You ever heard of Cantinflas?
No, never heard of it. I ran into a guy, I can't remember his name, from so many years ago while I was on ship. On the USS Denver, we were doing a rim pack, and he's a black gentleman, and he had a book, and it was interesting. This book went through the different names of how black Americans, let me rephrase this, how they got their names, and a lot of them go back to like the First Crusades, where the name Moore. I just remember this stuck in my mind. The name Moore and all its different incantations were always...
Okay. Lost you, but I was asking about Cantinflas. So you heard about Cantinflas, man. But I don't know what happened to Kaiser. Are you there? Brandon.
I'm still here.
Oh, good, man. Have you heard of Cantinflas? Because I don't know what happened to Kaiser. He's still on the line, but I think he might have muted himself. I'm not sure. Kaiser, if you muted yourself, you might want to unmute yourself. He might be talking to himself and not even be aware.
I mean, he sounded like he was kind of breaking up in the beginning. I don't know if he had a bad connection, maybe.
Yeah.
It said connection. It said poor connection.
There you go.
I just brought up, I don't know how, but it said poor connection because my thing was rocking. Anyways, this gentleman I met.
You're back, and
Yep.
Real quick before you go back into your story, have you heard of Cantinflas?
No, I said no at the beginning of. Yeah, that's why I said. But it's interesting on the name thing. That's how I let in. See, I probably was breaking up for whatever reason.
Yeah, you were, because I don't think anybody heard the answer. No, you went into. But Cantinflas, real quick before you go back into your story, Cantinflas was a comedian back in the 50s and 60s, and actually to the 70s before he passed away in the 80s. He's actually considered one of the funniest, probably the funniest Spanish comedian of all time, because he made dozens and dozens of Spanish movies. In fact, Charlie Chaplin, when he was still, in his prime and his heyday back in the day, said that he was a huge fan, and not only that he was the funniest person he had ever seen in a film, was Cantinflas. And Charlie Chaplin knew how to, he understood Spanish pretty well, but he didn't speak it that well. He was one of those guys. But he watched a lot of his movies, and he said he would just die laughing. And you imagine, like, a Mexican version of, like, Jim Carrey.
Oh, okay.
That's kind of who Cantinflas was. Before Jim Carrey, there was Cantinflas. He was like the guy that everybody kind of like modeled their comedy in English when it came to those kind of like movies where like for example, they had, like, I don't know if you've seen this in modern day comedies where there's scenes where there's a lot said by the main guy in the movie, but at the end of it, like, whatever he rambles on, he really didn't say shit. Like, he just rambled on and on. Like, Pauly Shore does that a lot in his early movies. Jim Carrey does that in some of his movies where he just rambles on, and then you're like, what the hell did he just talk about? It was just funny, but nothing made sense, Cantinflas would do that often in the movies, and it was just really funny shit. But he was very slapstick, where he would fall down, and, he would cause accidents and stuff, like, very, like, Charlie Chaplin-like, but with a lot more vocals, because Charlie Chaplin was a silent guy, huh?
Yeah, he just did a lot of act outs. I can see what you're saying.
Right.
But
now you can go back to where you're saying. Go for it.
Where I was going with it was, it's interesting. There was a black gentleman. I was on the USS Denver doing a rim pack, and
we got that part, yeah.
Before the Gulf War, okay.
Okay. Cool.
Anyways, he had a book. It was really fascinating. He had looked up the history of Black American names, and here's one that blew me away. And if you think about it, there's a lot of whites that have the same name. Moore, because of the first Crusades, Moore was people of a Moorish background during the Crusades. And this book had all kinds of fascinating stuff on it like that. And I think if you delve into any name like Schwarzkopf, which is a blackhead, well, that's a German name, and it means blackhead. That meant they probably had black-headed people in their family. And, even though
where
it's a Germanic...
Where are we going with this?
Anyways, you had brought up...
like, this is just... I'm trying to get back to Picard here, and we're talking about black-headed people. Like, where are we going with this?
No, you brought up Cantifos, and you started to say...
He's a Mexican! Like, what does that got to do with some black-headed, like... Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, we're good. Don't worry about it, man. We'll move on from there. Let's just get along. Let's get along, shall we?
Oh, man. Have you ever heard of Malachi Z. York, by the way?
No. I don't, I don't watch a lot of films, so stuff like that's going to go to just...
he's not a filmmaker or an actor or anything like that. He actually was a cult leader in Atlanta, Georgia, and he had the Moorish movement, and he claimed he was I think like 1/3 of half of a percentage of, I think less than Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas. He claimed he was like a percentage, a little bit lower than maybe she registered as Native American, but it was enough to get his little tribe or cult registered as a religious church movement, so he'd have to pay taxes. And he bought a bunch of land in Georgia, and he literally reconstructed the pyramids of Giza and all kinds of junk. And he did a lot to bring the community from the Moors community to live in the property he bought. And then for some strange reason he decided to start raping children. I don't know how that happened.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and then he got some whistleblowers that came out, and this is a few years back after he wrote some books and he was claiming to be a messiah and all kinds of stuff. And the man is now in prison for many, many years. The whistleblowers were actually the children that came out that he was molesting, and he's not a good dude. And check this out. Let's segue a little bit here, and we're going to get back to Picard in a minute. Because I really want to get to that. But there's a lot of news that I do have on angelespino.com. And one of them is touching on this very subject, which if you guys go there right now, you'll be able to read along with us on, again, angelespino.com. Yes. And, or thejackal.com. Not the Jaffe, it's the Jackal.
Oh, this is going to be a weekly thing, I bet.
Oh, I'm gonna rip on you on a weekly basis. Oh, hold on, let me turn that off. I love my own voice, but not that much. Yeah, I'm gonna rip on you on a weekly basis. You know that.
That's a good thing.
It is.
Let's get this humiliation going. All right, brother.
Just make sure you're ready for it. On Kaiser's Korner, you're going to get ripped.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to get back to Picard in a second here, but did you hear about this news from California? Or as our ex-governor would say from California, California.
Yeah, where California wants to exempt the LGBT child rapist from the sex offender registry. That sounds like it's really going to go over well. I honestly think, with that kind of insanity and the other insanity going on in Cali, I can see where it may flip. Now, you can call me a liar and you can say I'm guessing, but there's a movement right now in California where I don't know if we're going to have the same election results out of that state as we did the last time in this presidential race.
I think there's a lot of drainage from the swampage is going to be happening in this election in California. Check this out. I'm going to read a little bit of this. It says here, and I wrote the post on my blog again on angelespino.com. Yeah. It says, as I wrote, now the alphabet people in California want to pass a bill to make it so if you're part of their community and, they shouldn't be charged with pedophilia if a grown adult rapes a minor. That's right, folks. The Congress have a bill they want to pass to make the alphabet community happy that if one of them should have intercourse with a minor child, they don't have to register as a sex offender to move into your neighborhood. Think about that for a second. So Obama, like I put here, he put, very beautifully written, so Obama wanted to put transgenders in our bathrooms. Now they want to go and put this, folks. The country's been lost if this passes.
Yep.
And I tell you what, if this happens and this bill goes through, and I'm not reading the page, I want you guys to go read it yourself, but if this passes, guys, California, you know what? We should build a wall around California. And just going back to Mexico. Like, you know what, Mexico? Take California. Just keep it. Because, I'm starting to be done with California. I'm just saying.
What they call that? The, trying to remember from my time, the Aztlan project where they wanted to resettle the Southwest into Mexico. Wasn't that what it was called?
You know what, they could call it, Cali exit, ass exit, whatever they want to call it. Just if they keep going in this direction, because it's getting scary out of Cali. Let me tell you, a lot of crazy things are being said, being done. But if this bill somehow catches fire and they pass this, along with they wanted some crazy, Democrat in California wanted to make it so Trump couldn't be on the ballot for the election. How do you exclude the president from running in the election in a state? How does that happen? How do you even have the balls to do that?
Well, how do you impeach a president that didn't do anything wrong? Yeah, they did it, and, you saw what it is. So it's all political, man. And that's how I look at it.
Yeah, but that's a little bit crazier than just trying to impeach. By the way, that was a good one. If you think about this, they're trying to make it so, and it's looking more and more like this. They're trying to make it so Pete Buttigieg, they're trying to make it so that he is the nominee for the Democratic Party, and I think that they're trying to make him the alphabet people Obama. Try saying that 5 times real quick. The alphabet people Obama. The alphabet people Obama. The alphabet people Obama. The alphabet people Obama. Rewind, people Obama alphabet, or something like that. Brandon, you've been awfully quiet. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm sorry, I'm still laughing from earlier. I was trying to mute it out.
This happens.
Sorry.
Speaking of black people, Head, give us your thoughts, my friend. Black people.
The black-headed.
That was funny as shit, man. I had no idea where he was going with that.
I'm sorry, I had to take the headphones off altogether. Oh God.
This is gonna be fun. This is gonna be fun. Look,
doing good, man.
This is gonna be good. We have a Cuban, we have a genuine black person, and a genuine older person who slips up every once in a while, and he happens to be white. So this is gonna be a good one.
I like that. I like that question. How do you impeach a president that never did anything wrong? And with California's situation, I know they've been making or trying to make a lot of changes to how the voting system works. I think it's just a freak show out there, politically, economically, socially, environmentally. I don't know what's happened to that once. It was a great state at one point. I don't know what happened. Our friend Daryl may disagree. He's a diehard Californian, but I don't know, man. It's a shaky situation. I think Trump will. I'm a little disappointed on the Republican side. I think Trump will definitely take the Republican nomination. I was actually trying to see if anybody would go against him on the Republican side, but it's like nobody there.
There was a few candidates, but I mean, really, he's the sitting president. Well, you think any of them are going to get any traction? And I mean, there's no debates for the right. They could try to run, but they're not going to get anywhere. And but there were like 4 heads. I have no idea what their names are, by the way. But I did see there's 4 dudes against Trump, and I think they're either all done already, or because he's the nominee, he's the president. I mean, he's the incumbent. But now, as far as the left. It looks like Creepy Joe, Uncle Joe, Sniffing Joe, Blow Joe, Quid Pro Joe, Quick Jojo, 3030 Jojo, whatever the hell his name is. He's going to be sniffing glue somewhere else because it's not going to be in the White House. I'll tell you that much. I think he is done for. I think the media is trying to get rid of him. I do believe they're trying to get rid of Bernie Sanders. I think that thing is also rigged against Bernie. And I'm telling you, they're pushing for Mayor Pete Buttigieg, guy. They're pushing for that guy. And
I'll tell you, a booty.
Yeah, exactly. Don't judge the booty. That should be a slogan, by the way.
There you go.
Vote for me. Don't judge the booty.
Hey, I'll tell you something fascinating, though. You talked about Republicans not trying to go against Trump. I think that Mitt Romney actually floated a trial balloon when he did that vote to convict. I think that was him trying to, and then his little, I've got to go with my feelings. When Utah now is pushing, of course, it's not because there's Mormons there, but they're pushing for multi-marriages again, polygamy. So that's something that really hasn't hit the mainstream much at all. Your thoughts?
Right. Well, I can definitely get down with multiple wives. I have no issues with that. What do you think there, Detox?
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I have no issues with that. Hey,
me.
This is the way I see it.
I need to check the credit scores, but I'm good.
Yes. Yeah, the way I see it is the more the merrier. Double your pleasure, double your fun.
I've got one wife, and all the time I spent in the Near East with these guys having 4 and 5 wives, I'd look at them and I'd say, I couldn't imagine the bickering. And until you go to their houses and see how the wives interact, oh yeah, you wouldn't like it. Trust me, it sounds better than it is.
Oh, but if they get them all in a menage a threesome or a menage a troisome or whatever they call it, it's going to be a whole lot of worth it, let me tell you.
I don't know. That's not how they play it over there, but that's for another day.
Well, or another night. Or another
there you go.
Overnight. Or another 30 seconds, depending on how,
Well, I hope it's not 30 seconds. I hope you're not a minute man, brother.
Well, no, that's under a minute. Hey, like Dave Chappelle said, I'm tired of being vilified for being quick. I mean, what are y'all trying to do, ladies? Come, right? Well, same here. It's not, like Chappelle would say, it's not my fault that I'm quicker. I'm a speed fucker. Shit happens.
I'll tell you, the funniest thing I ever saw out in Pahrump, Nevada, 55 miles due west of Las Vegas. When I was a Marine, we used to go to Vegas on long weekends because it was cheap back then.
Right.
And I'd head out to this.
It's not cheap now.
I know it's not. I know it's. I've been there lately. But here's the thing. I used to go out there when me and my one girlfriend broke up. I'd go out there to Pahrump to Sherry's Ranch. It was a brothel. And the motto on the card, I still have the card today, where our customers always come first. That's a for real fucking motto, brother.
As long as you don't do it on my head, we're good.
Oh, bukkake.
No bukkake on the Jackals Kabasaki.
All right, brother.
We don't bukkake on the Jackals Kabasaki.
Oh, that's good. All right.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk about the multicultural racist and hypocrite at work?
No, I want to go back to Picard because that's kind of close to that. It's multicultural. The Romulans being racist against the Romulans on the show. I know you've been sort of watching, Kaiser, but when we were off the air, Detox here brought up a good point with the cube, and I know we wanted to get back to that because it was actually a good point. I wanted to let him speak on it. So, Brandon, you want to go ahead and address that now that we're back and segued away from what was happening earlier?
Yeah.
Are you composed, by the way? Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm good to go.
Okay.
Thank you. Now, for those that have been watching Picard and you too, Jackal, you've seen that there is an element of the Borg in the show. We got sorry if I'm spoiling things for you people, but we got a Romulans in control of some sort of a Borg ship. I don't want to call it a derelict because we don't know where it came from, what it is. But to me, I don't know where the story is going to end up with Picard, but to me, this could be a precursor or prelude to maybe a future war with the Romulans, especially if we discover them in possession of some type of Borg technology. What do you think, Jackal?
That's kind of where I was going with that. I think, there's always a lot of politics involved with Star Trek in particular, and I think that's going to be part of, like, what's going on here with the Romulans. Eventually, they're going to be exposed politically as, doing stuff in covert operatives mode inside that Borg ship. I think the Starfleet doesn't trust him for that reason, and they'll never trust him for that reason. Picard has a soft spot for everybody, and that's always been kind of like his issue. And I like the fact they're bringing the Borg back in sort of a way with Jerry Ryan coming back, and of course, Jean-Luc has his history with the Borg, so I do like the connections they're doing there. And honestly, the best Star Trek, even the movie, when the Next Generation crew was involved, was the one with the Borg. That to me, that was my favorite from the movie run that they were on. So having that connection, that helps to me big time, because it keeps not only my interest in what's going on, but it adds a new element where, like, what are they doing on the Borg ship? What's this about? Like, that was surprising. And I'm cool with it, man. I like where they're going with it. I kind of want to see where they go in the next few episodes. Now, it's going to be only 8 episodes or 10 episodes, something like that. It's a short season, right?
Yeah, it's extremely short, 10 episodes. We're already halfway through it.
That's kind of like what they did with Game of Thrones and The Mandalorian. I think that's going to be the way
standard.
Standard for bringing in new shows. I'm kind of curious about some of the, just like you said, Brandon. I'm kind of curious to see where they go with it. I agree with a lot of now, just like with all the different things, I can agree with both sides, and I don't need to argue about it. But I think here's the mess I think they got into with Star Trek is it became very woman-oriented. And I can make a joke because of what the Jackal said earlier about Picard having a soft spot for Romulans. It's no different than James Kirk when he had a soft spot for everybody, even including a green woman. So, that's just the case. He's a man. But it seemed to be...
No. Hold on. James Kirk didn't have a soft spot. He had a hard-on for women. Yeah,
well, he wanted to get into their soft spot, so that's what I was trying to be quiet about, but you just made it very blatant, so okay, cool.
That's what I'll do. I'm Captain Obvious. This is my head.
Captain Obvious. But anyways, no, the reality is I think that, and I'd love to hear Brandon's thoughts on this, and yours too, honestly, Jackal. I want to hear your thoughts on if you think, like a lot of people do, that it's become very gynocentric, i.e. the woman, whatever, admiral or whatever, chief of Starfleet, talking down to him and all that stuff. Your thoughts?
This was something I didn't know if I was even going to touch on tonight, but you brought up a good point, Kaiser. It is a very female dominated cast. Of course, we have Picard, but it seemed like everyone that we're subtly introducing into the show seems to be a very female dominated cast. I don't see that changing. I mean, if you were asking my personal opinion, I don't really care for that because a lot of other sci-fi legacies have dwindled because of female-dominated casts like Ghostbusters. They even talk about bringing out an all-female Fast and Furious. We can't. No, I can't do it.
Yeah, that would be a fail.
Yeah, that's just nothing but more agenda that's bound to fail. But like you say, we got the female I can't remember her name, that old woman, that admiral that told Picard to leave. Then you got the Starfleet security person, that Vulcan, whatever she is. Very bizarre character, by the way. And then Picard's own little renegade crew. Like, you probably didn't hear this earlier, but I'm not really feeling the crew that he put together. It has nothing to do with they're not wearing uniforms and not in a typical bridge scene, but it's just a lot of clashing sarcasms bouncing around from each character. You have Jackal, what's that woman name with the that weird hair, Raffi, or whatever her name is?
Yeah, I think it's Raffi. Here's a question for you guys. Here's a question for you guys, because I understand your frustration and your anger and your anti-vagina monologues there. But let me ask you, did we not have women in Star Trek before? I remember powerful women in The Next Generation, like Dr. Beverly, what's her name? Wesley Crusher's mom.
Yes, but here's the difference in.
Well, hold on, let me
People are
finish
trying to
with this.
control the scene like they are now.
Yeah.
No, but they've
the
had those, but they had those episodes back then also. I mean, there was always, episodes where the doctor was, a big contributor, or the psychic. I don't remember a lot of the names because I'm not a big checker, but I remember seeing these episodes, and like, what's the other one? The psychic.
Yeah,
Hold on, let me finish. What's her name? Brandon, the psychic one. The one was with Frakes.
Troy,
Yeah.
Troy.
Yeah, Lieutenant Troy.
Right, and then we had also Catherine Janeway as the captain. I mean, we've had hold on. But we've had women in Star Trek for a long time, so it's not like that's a foreign concept.
No, you're taking it in a different direction. Even with Janeway, she was the captain. So it's going to be about, hold on, let me finish.
And this person was above the admiral.
Okay, let me finish. She was the captain of the vessel, okay? And they built her around, and the vessel around her. That's the way that's supposed to be. That's natural. That's normal. That's not gynocentric, and it's not anti-vagina, what we're talking about. I've been married 26 years. If I was anti-vagina, I would not have been married this long.
Not necessarily,
but the point is Janeway.
I'll bring one up. I'll bring one name up that'll completely destroy your point there. By the way,
Janeway was the star on that particular series. Okay, now when you're reintroducing a series and Jean-Luc, unless they're not going to keep him as a star, unless they're just putting him in just to get likes and people to watch it, and then they're going to switch roles, which I'm thinking they're going to do. I'd love to hear your guys' take on it. But the point is, you introduce the cast, and of course you have to have the leading person, male or female, to control it. And it was, you're right, they had specific episodes as the show progressed, following the Doctor, following Leanna Troy, following every female, and even Uhura had her own episodes back in the 60s. So,
right.
But that was after you introduced the cast, what the point of the show is.
But
so
this is the cast, and they're telling you.
Let me finish.
But the point, but hold on, you're completely contradicting what's happening. They already introduced you. Hold on, let me continue real quick. Okay. They already started telling you what the point of the show is. There's some MacGuffin already on the show, which is the second girl. They already have part of the cast put together when it comes to the crew, which they introduced them and they gave them their own little story. Picard has been driving most of the scenes. They need to introduce these other characters so they can get the crew together, and that's what they've been doing. Again, you also got to take into consideration this is a 10-episode season. This is not going to have 25 episodes. So you got to do everything like one at a time. And we know who Picard is. We don't have to give you a lengthy backstory on who he is. We know who he was.
Look,
he was the captain for 10 years.
It can be done. It can be done the right way, and I'll give you an example. That's why I'm saying, let me finish, because I knew where you were going to go with that. Here's the point. The Mandalorian. You and I have both seen it, right? The Mandalorian introduced a very strong character, and she is a MMA girl, okay? She's for real deal. She's a for real deal badass, okay? You can see the way they introduced her. First, they built him in the first couple shows. Then they introduce her. It fits like a glove. I think that's a perfect fit. That's what Star Trek used to do.
I understand that, but
you cut me off without letting me finish. My point, brother, is that you introduce them at a particular point, and you build them up.
Kaiser. But they're different characters, Kaiser. They already introduced the main girl and the twin, and they're completely different characters. They're different shows. This character from Mandalorian is a bounty hunter, and she is there, and I like the way they introduced her. I love the Mandalorian, but they're completely different characters. Just because they're not the same introduction doesn't make it bad.
Yes, it does. Because let's hear from Brandon, because he follows Star Trek a lot closer than I do, and I did follow it all the way up through Janeway. I didn't like. I loved Deep Space Nine. That was a whole different concept. That was cool. But the point is, Brandon's the guy who's a Star Trek man. I'm more of a Star Wars guy. But I'm saying, when you double back on the twins, that was like nonsense. And I have no idea why they put that in there. And all of a sudden she's a superhero, and then she gets killed. Whatever. Who cares? I'm not about that. If you're going to have a main character, which Picard would be, he would not be getting dressed down by everybody in the opening episode. And it wouldn't go like this unless it's gotten political. And I want to hear Brandon's take, because he probably will have an entirely different take than both me and you, brother.
Well, before Brandon gets on there, I'll tell you this much, and I said earlier, you just weren't listening before you got on the air, but the reason that they have the two girls, the twins, is because it's mirroring Data, having Data, and before. Remember, there's two Datas, there's two twin girls.
Right,
so
and
that's the mirror effect that they're having. That's standard storytelling. It's just rhyming.
Yeah. It's standard storytelling, but even with Data, you didn't know that until you were deep into the episode. So just go back and rewatch them.
Yeah, but it's just a different way of telling the story. It doesn't make it bad just because it's not the way you like it. Remember, TV and movies is all subjective. It doesn't make it good or bad. It's just if you enjoy it or not. Well, but this is actually, when it comes to storytelling, it actually fits in perfectly with the story they're trying to tell. Whether you like it or not, that's subjective.
If you go by every hero's journey, it always starts the same way. And that's the hero's journey. And that's what they did with Janeway perfectly. That's what they did with Picard back in the day perfectly. That's what they did with I think he was an admiral in Deep Space Nine. Or not Deep Space Nine, I said it earlier.
Cisco?
Yeah, Cisco. And you start out with a slight introduction of everybody, but you don't just swing it wild, and you don't actually have a hero to follow whose journey. And that's what they've done, and you don't need to rush it. They didn't rush it in The Mandalorian. You do not need to rush the people coming in, male or female, and it's a kaleidoscope of just all these different things coming in that's absolute, like you said, nonsense for nonsense sake. You don't remember what they even said or what the whole point of why they're there. And that's good storytelling if you don't do that. And it doesn't matter if it's a TV series. They've always held to that because it makes sense to the human being. It's this fast fashion of this Depeche Mode of social media that makes it like this. And that's my opinion.
It's funny because that contradicts completely what Detox Brandon, who was saying earlier. To him, is actually going slow, and you're saying it's going too fast. So already you guys are at opposite ends, and that to me it's hysterical because I think it's going at the perfect pace in introducing the characters. Like we're completely opposite ends here, all three of us. Brandon, you want to address that because for you it's going way too slow. And apparently it's going way too fast for Kaiser.
Oh, that's an interesting contrast. I don't think that's a bad take on any of our three parts here. My thing is, it seems like
it's all subjective.
True. And compared to previous Trek incarnations, we have the crew wherever they come from. Normally, that's my biggest pet peeve with the slow-moving, what I call slow-moving plot. Normally, we have the crews assembled within 30 minutes of the show. Traditionally, we're spending 3-4 episodes assembling, just adding one new person to this. I'm just kind of like, all right, well, who is this person? Who are we waiting on now? To me, it's just kind of dragging out the initial story. I think something will lead to something better in the end, but for right now, to me, it's just kind of like, especially after the second episode, I'm just kind of like, okay, who are we waiting on next? Who's going to join this next? What's the next piece of this? That's, I guess to me, it's just not going, I don't want to blow through it, but it's just kind of like you've got 10 episodes and we've already used half of the season just assembling the characters that make up the story. I'm just kind of like, are we going to be rushed at the very end or what's going to happen? But there's a curiosity that I have with this story. We'll see where it goes. And falling back to an earlier point you guys made about the female characters taking over, this sort of thing. Everybody had their particular role. Okay, we had, like you just mentioned, Janeway was the captain. She built her crew around her. She built the ship around her. My contrast with the characters we've seen in Picard, everyone has their own little agenda. We have Rafi. I don't understand why she's on the mission. She's hostile toward everybody. I kind of don't even identify with the character. Whenever someone tries to introduce themselves to her, she's just like, who's this? Who made her part of the crew? It's just like, and I'm over here thinking, we just had a flashback of her 14 years ago where I'm like, you must have been a crappy officer because you got canned and you were just a lieutenant. Nobody's even attacking that point. But whatever reason she got canned for, they're not touching it. The doctor lady, I can't think of her name all of a sudden. She seems to be interesting, but the Romulan guy, the one with the hot sister, you've seen her, Jackal, the one that choked the Romulan guy in the last episode. I can't think of her name. Yeah. I won't do my sisters, but that one is pretty hot.
Yep. In the words of some of the ancestors, I concur.
I'm not saying I would do her if she was my sister, but not saying I wouldn't.
Let's just say if there's some Romulan ale involved, there might be some pale. Paling anyway.
Out of all the female ensemble they've assembled in this series, that's kind of the one I'm kind of like, what is she doing? I'm kind of more interested in what her ultimate role is going to be in this, but besides from choking her brother,
Right.
She's definitely marketing the sex appeal more than the other one, the other people that have been on the show so far. But
she got that booming system. That's right.
Yeah. She's definitely keeping some blood flowing on the show. That's for sure.
So you see what I'm saying? There's a little something for everybody on the show, Picard. Huh?
Yeah, I think with Picard in particular, I think the show does have potential. I'm not discounting it as of yet, but we've soaked up already so many episodes into an extremely limited season. And like I said, watching TV today is not as it was back in the early 2000s and even the 90s. We're not, like you say, we're not getting 20 episodes per season. I'm a little disappointed with that. Watching television is becoming a little cumbersome for me because we're not getting as much material. It seems like the actors don't want to work as much, but they want to get paid more. That's obvious.
Well, that's part of it, but also, and this is something that for shows like this, considering it's on a streaming platform, it gives it a good chance to, be picked up for multiple seasons. But if you condense it to 10, 15 episodes around there, you're also going to get better storylines that connect to not standalone episodes or filler episodes, plus the special effects budgets are going to be able to be taken and really, used better than if you have to, use the show's budget on a 25 episode season. If you condense it to 10 and you give it a good budget, it's almost like making one big movie. Because a lot of these things that are like 10 episodes, 8 episodes, they cost like $250 million to make, like a big budget movie. What they do is they shoot a lot of hours because, and this is something actually I wanted to ask you guys before we continue to the news in a little bit, with this concept of the show, because this is not a standalone episode, show. This is a narrative that it has a story arc, and every episode connects to the last episode, and that's also different from what we're used to with Star Trek, even with Discovery or some of the, considering especially the older series, they were all, standalone episodes for the most part with continuing background storylines. But still, every episode felt like it was just its own thing, with, whatever was going on in the universe or the galaxy or the Federation or whatever, in the background. But This is literally, we're following this one story arc that Picard is, going through. Does that difference make at all a big difference in the way you guys are viewing the show at all? Because it is different from what you're used to with Star Trek.
Well, I'll give my 2 cents real quick, Brandon, and it's going to be very quick. We're not talking apples and oranges when we're talking about story development. When you look at the same kind of thing happened with Game of Thrones, and then they fucked up the ending, okay? And then you look at something like The Mandalorian. That first season, it did exactly what you said. It built the characters. You got to know the characters. There were some ancillary characters that came in that were fun, too. The woman who had the droids playing cards with them while they were repairing his ship. All that kind of stuff. It gave flavor to it. And then when Yoda got snatched, and in the end you saw the actual
the child.
Mandalorian.
He's not Yoda. He's the child.
Well, the baby Yoda.
No. He's the child. There's no baby Yoda.
Anyways, everybody knows what I'm talking about. So it's like an argument I got into with a guy about generations and night vision. This guy just kept particularly going to the different gens, and I'm like, dude, I was around when we had infrared was the only night vision. And now we have night vision that's the night optics we have now are generations ahead. You wouldn't believe some of it. Even the different thermal systems. They didn't even exist back then. My point being is that you see the transition, and it came to the final conclusion when that TIE fighter got brought down. He was leveling up. It was like a video game, a long video game, and he finally got his rocket pack. He brought down a TIE fighter carrying the child, and once that was done...
Leave Daddy alone!
He did his thing and went away, and the ending was way cool because you remember what he had in his hand when he cut himself out of that TIE fighter. And that's good storytelling. Just like Game of Thrones was good storytelling until the very end. The last season was shit. And with Picard, right now, and the season's not over, they can pull this out completely, in my opinion. If they start building all the characters and getting us to love them and like them. And that's the point of a good hero's journey. And your thoughts, Brandon, brother?
Guys, I totally agree with that. They need to do a better job, which I think they can still salvage what you just said. Make us like the characters. Make us want to get to know the characters. It seems like we're just seeing them from the outside, and that's it. We're not getting, like you say, time's limited. Unfortunately, in today's modern theater, we're not, getting all these episodes like we used to. But I want to get a closer glimpse into this character, that character. Let's like the characters. Let's, make them connect. And you just mentioned a good point. We got a hero that's on a journey, whether you want to call it his last journey or, it may not be his last journey. We don't know. But, if these are people that are here to stay, let's get to know them. Let's get to like them for different reasons. Let's blend it all together. That's one thing that Trek has relied on for decades throughout all the series. I mean, like you said, Deep Space Nine was a fantastic concept. You had all these people from all these backgrounds, all these planets, whatever you want to call it, this diversity that blended together into a beautiful project that has aged beautifully to this day. Voyager had the same thing. There was a little bit more interpersonal conflict with the Voyager series, but it was cohesive and everyone still got the job done. Enterprise did the same thing. That was a little bit more of a raw project. That was great. We'll just leave Discovery out. I just don't even want to go into that. But I think we'll just leave Discovery alone. That's just outlier for right now. That's a whole nother show right there. But let's do something for Picard where
it's
we get
not in the J.J. Abrams universe. It's back in the regular timeline. At least that's what the Trekkies.
I'm feeling frankly blessed by that. I think J.J. Abrams is killing everything he's touched. We're not seeing as many lens flares. There were a couple of lens flare violations on the last Picard episode. But
a nod to JJ. That's what I'm saying. That was a nod
that's
to
his
JJ.
that's his hidden tribute right there. The lens flares.
Easter egg.
But I think we need to keep moving forward. I would like to see if there is a second season. I heard the show has already been renewed for a second season. I can't.
Yep.
I mean, I know Patrick Stewart's a powerful name even to this day. I'm surprised they already said it's the second season in production. But let's keep this thing going. I'm curious to see where the story takes us, where it goes. I would like to see a little bit more Starfleet in the end. You know, I kind of feel like this is kind of like reminiscent of Voyager. You just see this one ship that's a standalone, and it's a renegade ship. I don't want it to maintain that premise forever. Let's bring people back, and I agree with what Patrick Stewart said. I don't think this should be a next generation reunion show. I don't mind seeing a guest star here and there maybe, but I would like to see.
Well, they've had Data on the show, kind of, sort of.
Yeah, those are more dream sequences in the beginning.
But he died, remember, so you can't really have Data back full, blown Data.
Yeah, I don't want Data back.
That sounds
I don't want Data back. Not like
Data.
that.
I don't want Data
Jonathan
back,
Frakes, number one's going to be on the show, or has that?
He's going to be introduced, I think, in the next, I think maybe 2 episodes from now. Yeah. And, this is supposed to be, a few years after Dominion, a few years after Voyager gets home. I would like to see it expand to something beyond the classic Romulan Klingon. And I'm like, we've expanded in space a little further. Let's introduce something more dangerous. Of course,
speaking of dangerous and expand, have you seen what Jonathan Frakes looks like these days? He's expanded.
Yes, I would really like to tackle this till after I see the episode where he's featured. But I was hoping he would be an active officer or something, not some old fat guy in the woods. But I mean,
yeah,
I will tackle this on a later episode.
Hey, don't be hitting on old fat guys in the woods now. Come on, brother. You guys.
No, hey, but he was number one. Now it looks like he has trouble taking a number one. Like, I can't
let me
reach
ask
it.
you something. Speaking of number one, let me ask you. You remember the dog that he had been promoting through this whole show? Where was the dog when the Romulans attacked his house?
If the dog is actually bright, probably not around. He probably said, "Screw this," and then he took off.
Hey, I would like to see some cross promotion, and I'll tell you this: that dog should have been replaced by those dogs they used in that one film I saw years ago, where the predators were hunting people on a planet. That was actually some wild ass looking dogs. You remember them? They had like the horns on them. Running after the
yeah.
What was that? Predators, I think it was called.
Predators, yeah.
Predators. I don't remember that scene, but probably was
you
high
don't
when
remember
I
the
saw
movie
it.
where they dropped people by parachute and they woke up falling, and then this disparate band of people had to fight for survival. You had a Yakuza, a Soviet Spetsnaz, a Jewish sniper.
That sounds like Gary Dream I have, actually, since I've been 12.
No, it was actually a really good predator. They had all kinds of different life on this planet, and they would hunt all of it.
Wasn't that Requiem? Like Predator Requiem? Or
No, it was called Predators.
Oh. But they had one called Requiem, right?
That was Aliens.
Ah, see, they made a whole lot of crossovers of those after the first AVP.
Yep, and I don't mind cross promotion or cross blending things like that because it just gives a wink and a nod. Just like in The Mandalorian, they were roasting the one character that used to hang on Jabba the Hutt's body,
right?
Laugh all the time, and one was getting roasted, and the mother was crying because it was her son or something getting spit roasted. Not spit roasted in a pornography thing. I know where your mind's going there.
No. I remember the scene, and it was funny because he was actually getting roasted. They're going to eat him like a porg.
Yep.
That was a fun scene. I do like the tie-ins on Mandalorian, but anyway, I guess we're not going to agree on Picard, huh? No?
I don't know. I'm waiting for. I thought Brandon be throwing in some good humor and jokes, man. He cracking up.
I think he still mutes himself. I think he's still laughing at the earlier part of the show.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm composed. But yeah,
good times.
I've intercepted a lot of interesting names for the Picard series. I've heard Star Trek: The Lone Colonoscopy, Star Trek Geriatrics.
Yes. They have Jerry Ryan on the show now, so there you go.
Yeah.
Star Trek's The Mountains of Bush. Gotta love it.
I heard that.
There you go.
I'm going to be interested to see where Jerry Ryan comes into play. I was actually happy to see Jonathan Del Arco play Hugh again. I do follow him on his personal Facebook page. Seeing him back in the role, it'll be interesting to see. I'm kind of wondering, is he someone that can be trusted? People are responding, oh, well, you saw him in the last Next Generation episode he was in. He can be trusted. I'm like, that was almost 30 years ago, and this was before he started hanging out with Romulans. I think it's a valid point. We haven't seen him in a long time. We don't know what he's been through. I would like Jerry Ryan to come on and explain some of her life since, Voyager returned. See some more of that.
But do we really need a full explanation on her journey since Voyager?
Not a complete explanation. Just a quick 5-minute excerpt. Something.
Think she'll bring up the divorce she got. Wasn't it the Cleveland mayor she was married to? The divorce because he wanted her to do menage a trois.
I'd like to know more about that.
Yeah. Well, can I Google that?
Right now, actually.
Google it, and I believe it was a Cleveland mayor she was married to, and they got a divorce because he was pushing for her to go swing with him.
Was it Cleveland? Let me search Cleveland menage a trois. Jerry Ryan.
Jerry Ryan. This is what we got to do. Google Jerry Ryan menage a trois.
Jerry Ryan divorce, because it came up in the divorce hearings.
How do you spell twa? T-Y-A-W or something?
People gonna die?
I think that's about right. T-W, yeah, I think so. Jerry Ryan menage a trois.
No, just divorce. Just bring up the divorce, brother, and it'll tell the salacious details.
Salacious Crumb. That's the name, isn't it, of the character that gets roasted, by the way?
Exactly. That's the species. Yeah.
Yes.
Salacious Crumb.
No, I think that's actually his name, Salacious Crumb.
I want her to talk crap about Janeway for a minute, too, if she gets around to it on the show.
Hey, you know what? Speaking of female characters, I love Janeway. I'm actually a big fan of the Voyager series. I know a lot of people give it, flack because it was a little campy at times, but I actually liked it. I liked Neelix. I liked even Chakotay, which means
I was a big Chakotay fan. I was definitely a big fan of Chakotay. Of course, the Seven kind of, in retrospect, some of the other cast members to this day claim that, not specifying any cast members, but they were saying that, she kind of stole the spotlight when she came on board,
Jerry Ryan, yeah.
Which, let's be honest, she did. But,
yeah.
I think the development was kind of lacking for some of the characters on Voyager. Of course, to this day, people joke that Harry Kim was always an ensign.
Well, he was. I'm doing Lost in Space. What are you going to do? You're promoted to Lieutenant Kim, and
I think she should have, because she promoted Tom Paris, which he was. How you got a guy that just came out of prison and you put him, or
because you
listen him to a rank that's higher than what he was when he got kicked out. I've always kind of wondered about that. And she demoted him and re-promoted him later in the series. And I'm just like, what did he do?
Well, not just
Well,
that.
he was a badass, and they needed him on the ship. I mean, they needed all the help they could get. But go ahead there, Kaiser.
I think that had been set by Picard when he was promoting that kid who was doing online learning.
Wesley Crusher?
Yeah, Wesley. And he promoted him as the show went along. So, I mean, Janeway could have done whatever she wanted to, and it was a heavy-duty affront to Harry Kim, and he should probably, next time they have a Trek reunion, smack her in the face for never promoting him. Honestly.
It's valid.
Yeah.
I think it's
Now,
valid.
do you think that maybe Janeway was a little bit racist against Lil Kim? I mean, Harry Kim?
Well, now they would. They'd say, he probably went to Harvard, because that's what, Orientals do in their mind. And so they had to hold him back.
That's not racist.
Think about it. No, I'm saying, I'm making a joke, dude. Because they don't let, you have to have an exceedingly high score now if you're Asian to get into Harvard or Yale, all the Ivy League schools. It's ridiculous. It's just a sign of the times.
Yes. With everything we just said, everything you just said, I'm shocked and completely taken back by the fact that nobody's mentioned that the guy who was flying the ship for the most part was Asian. And we know they're hell of good drivers.
Jesus Christ. So you're doing you're promoting the Florida thing where if you get in an accident, it's either going to be an old gray-haired woman whose hair is the only thing that sticks above the steering wheel, or it's going to be an Asian. So that's what you're promoting out there, Jackal.
Well, all I'm saying, just follow here, is they can build great cars, but they can't really drive them well. I mean, maybe it's, I have a Chinese lineage also in my family, on my mom's side. I have a little bit of Chinese in my family, so I can get away with saying this. It's a little bit more in my gene than Pocahontas, by the way, from Elizabeth Warren. But maybe it's something to do with the eyes. I don't know. But they can definitely build great cars. But it always stuck out to me that the Asian was the guy flying the ship. Diversity. Only in Star Trek universe.
Of course. It's how it always has been.
And yet we have a problem with a chick named Michael on Discovery. Like, I don't get that.
Like I said, I have to...
In the Oval Office.
Huh?
I think she's a good actor, whatever her name is, that plays Michael Burnham, but I don't think she was built for Star Trek. And she's someone that's, every scene that she does, it's like she looks like she's about to cry, and it's just...
That is true. Yes, you damn dude. I've been trying to put my finger on it, and not in a dirty way. Well, maybe, depending on the finger. But I've been thinking about that and thinking about what it is about her, and you just hit it right on the head. It almost looks like every scene she's about to break down into tears, like, oh my God, we're not in space. Oh. And the guy was lead scientist who found out how the spores could take us to the galaxy, the travesty. Like, girl, calm down. You don't gotta cry, laugh.
Right, I don't know what the crying is for. Like when she approached the Terran Emperor, when she was still when the ship found themselves in a different universe, she looked like she was about to cry. I'm thinking, what is the source of this emotion? You've never been there. You don't know who that woman is, what she is, but you look like you're about to cry. It was just like, what are you crying for? I mean, just let it out. I mean, when she found Spock and spoke with him, I could see there being a little emotion there, but it just like, it just looks like her tear ducts are in overdrive. She could be a good actress on maybe Young and the Restless or something, or General Hospital or something. But Star Trek,
Star Trek into General Hospital.
Yes.
Oh, wait.
In some
serious?
ways, though, if you
laugh
look
even
back
harder.
on that series, it was, what do you call that? It really was a soap opera in space, in some ways. If you think they built the characters correctly, but it was pretty much a soap opera in space on that one particular series.
True.
A poorly written soap opera, but yes. I think I'll be honest. For my first time in my life, I think I may just ignore the Discovery series from here on out. Once Picard, I'm not sure what the timeline is on for CBS All Access with these shows, but I don't know if Picard will run to the end and then Discovery, starts airing. I'm not sure exactly when the show will be released again for season 3. I'm going to go and give that particular series a break. The show had a very confusing storyline from the last season. It just seemed like, I don't know how it got to point C from point B at all. It just very, very confusing. The characters have no cohesion, and after 2 seasons, I barely know anyone's name on the ship. It's just like, what are we doing here? So I'm going to just, I've been looking at some of the future projects they have on Trek. They don't need to do a Trek overload right now. They were talking about, is Trek going to be the next Marvel, something similar to that. I'm like, Trek's time to do that was 20 years ago. And people to this day fundamentally do not get Star Trek at all to this day. I like Star Trek as a fan base because it constantly renews itself. You do get new fans all the time, but there's still something about Star Trek that is completely over people's heads. Don't bombard people with it. We don't need a ton of movies, animated series. Don't do any of that stuff. I'm just kind of, I'm curious, I'm excited, but I'm concerned at the same time where it's going.
It sounds a lot like Star Wars right now, with the way you sound.
Yeah.
It's funny because, Star, Trek Wars, but, they're going through kind of like a similar thing where they're not doing as many, movies anymore. They're going to concentrate a little bit on the, TV side for a little bit. They're doing the, Kenobi series, even though they're kind of like holding that back until the scripts get a little bit better, because they didn't like exactly, or one Kathleen Kennedy didn't like where they were going with the scripts, so they got to go back and rework until she's satisfied, meaning they got to get more like, political agenda driven stuff in there. I don't know.
Well, I heard she's getting removed. That her days are numbered. So
it depends on who you ask. It depends on who you ask, because she renewed a contract for 2 years recently. So
here's my point. Maybe renewed it to do something else, because look, I mean, Lucasfilms has a lot of fingers in the pie all over the place. But with Discovery, what you guys brought up, and tell me if this makes sense to you. I think that was a hat nod. That entire series, and that's why it's so forgettable, was for the Space Shuttle Discovery. And if it seemed hurried, rushed, they did not develop the characters in those 3 seasons. None of them. And that's my opinion. Maybe a couple of them they did. But that's about it. And that's my 2 thoughts on that. And your thoughts?
Real quick, there was a USS Enterprise before there was the Star Trek Enterprise. My
uncle served on it. Yeah, it was the USS Enterprise, and it was based out of San Diego, and it was one of the first nuclear
nuclear vessels,
a warship or a battleship or something. Yeah.
Well, no, like they would say in Star Trek, it was a nuclear vessel, Captain.
Well, the first Enterprise actually was one of the first vessels, the U.S. Navy, being a Marine, former active service Marine. I kind of know my vessels. One of the first vessels that we did have in the U.S. Navy was an Enterprise, and that was Enterprise because it was protecting. During people do the research. You'll hear about the certain things like the Barbary pirates Well, that was Thomas Jefferson, the guy who always said, do not go into a war, no foreign wars, don't get embrangled in them. And yet he took us to our first foreign war, and that was the Barbary Pirates. And that's why the Marine Corps carry, the officers, they carry a sword. It's the Mameluke sword, and it was given by Lieutenant Presley O'Bannon because of the Marines' tenacity in the fight, which stopped the slave trade during that time that's now reopened thanks to the Hildebeest. And it's at the same place. That's why the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, Libya. So,
man, we're going really far with this one again.
Yeah, but you guys asked about the history of the Enterprise. There you go.
What did we ask about? Because I left you a long time ago.
The history of the ships named Enterprise.
I never asked for that. All I said was the USS Enterprise at one point. I never asked for the history or the biography of the ships. Actually, I was trying to make a funny, point that there was a USS Enterprise, there's been a Discovery, and there's been a Voyager ship.
No, you actually said there was an Enterprise before the Enterprise.
That's what I said, but
I said I brought up.
And then you just went out for I don't know where you went with that.
I went to the nuclear vessel and one of the first vessels we had in our U.S. Navy, the USS Enterprise.
Brandon?
I'm here.
Do you see where I'm going with that? I don't know. All I'm saying, I was just trying to make a correlation where they've always kind of done that on Star Trek, and where they've taken names from actual ships that we've had.
Yeah, we had a Discovery space shuttle. We've had an Enterprise space shuttle. Of course, you got going back to the naval ships. They also have origins there.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't had a Deep Space Nine, but we have, the next best thing, which is the Mir space station, right? And that's kind of like a concept for that. So, I mean, they've always kind of done that. Starfleet, we have the Space Force. It's kind of like, even the insignia is similar to the Space Force and the Starfleet. I don't know if you guys saw that. They released the logo for the Space Force. Looks awfully familiar, and they've always kind of done that. So I mean, that it's not really shocking. They did that for the Discovery show, but the history was cool.
Everything's always based in history, brother.
Yeah, this is true. And of course, we know if you don't learn from history, you're bound to repeat it. And speaking of repeating it, I'm going to segue for a second here before we get to other stories that I want to get to. Next week, I want to bring this up. Next week, guys, check this out. We're going to have a very cool guest on the show in the second hour, and he's a gentleman who has been on many times. In fact, when this show about a decade ago first started on, me and him, we did a podcast on Blog Talk Radio, and it was really cool. He's a kick-ass person. He's a doctor, Joseph Mera. If you go to my blog, angelespino.com, you'll be able to see, by looking up on the search section, and just look up Joseph F. Mara, M-A-R-R-A, and you'll find his past episodes with me. We're going to get an update of what he's been up to. Just booked him today. Really excited to speak to him again. As most of you listening in know, we took a little bit of a long break from doing this particular show because of health issues and other things as I've covered before. But he was one of the first few guests that I had on, and over the years he was on a lot on the show, and I'm really excited to have him back on. Look forward to having him on. He's, again, a kick-ass dude, and he's a doctor. And we're going to talk about ufology, we're going to talk about politics, and we're going to get into a whole lot of stuff, maybe even a little bit of the coronavirus outbreak and some other, cool things he might be working on, and his current life because it's been a while since I've spoken to him or had him on the show. So, guys, if you're listening in now or to the podcast and it's still not Sunday next week, bookmark it. Make sure you come back to it and join us. Joseph Mara is going to be on with the show next weekend. Man, that's going to be a whole lot of fun. And if you, I know you guys probably don't know who he is. Kaiser, have you heard of Joseph Mara? Are you familiar with him?
Yeah, man. You remember I was hanging out with you for a long time, just like with Jaffe. You know, we were all hanging out back in the day, you know, listening to podcasts and being a part of one, or two of them, actually. You had two shows on your network at that time. One was Bella Haven, and the other one was Future Theater. And we did an awesome show on Future Theater, and I was in two shows during, 2015 with Bella Haven. Wasn't that the era, or am I mistaken?
Yeah, well, no, this is way before that. No, I don't think you know who Joseph Mara is. Joseph F. Mara. Dr. Joseph Mara.
No, I do remember it. Like I said, I was listening before I ever called in. Remember?
Oh, well. Yeah, but he was on, not on Feature Theater. He was on Inside the Jackal's Head.
Inside the Jackal's Head, yeah, but it was like 2013, 2014, right?
Probably a little bit before, like 2011, I want to say 2012.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I was probably listening to you on SoundCloud back then. So I look at it during that time, and I'll bet that's when it was. I was listening to you and Clyde. I can't remember his last name. Clyde something. He used to do like an Art Bell kind of thing, and you were doing kind of the same thing back then. I think you were even helping Art Bell back then, weren't you?
Well, yeah, that was actually more recent. That's when he did, when he was coming back to online radio, or coming onto online radio for the first time, because he's, of course, AM legend, the late Art Bell. But when he was coming onto his own network, which is the Dark Matter Digital Network, and me, my co-host Seth Allen Weiler, and, of course, Nancy and Bill Burns, we did our shows on that network, and we kind of helped build the network up with the main producer and really the owner of the network, Keith Rowland. Shout outs to him. By the way, great guy. I mean, I know he takes a lot of flack from some people in the Art Bell scene out there, because there's a lot of fans of art. We're, of course, all fans of art. But Keith Rowland, to me, always a gentleman, and I have nothing but great things to say about the guy. And you know, he was always honest, true, and you know, he gave us a great opportunity to work alongside building a network for art. So that's something that, you know, to my dying day, I could say, hey, I worked in some capacity with one of my icons, one of my favorite radio guys, Art Bell. He's on my Mount Rushmore of radio personalities. So,
oh yeah. I remember during that time it was Bell Gab. It was the big message board. And
right. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, those were the heady days of the internet, where everything was being talked about.
Yep. Well, remember, I did Feature Theater with Bill and Nancy from 2013 to 2016, I want to say 15, 16, around there. It did Skywatchers Radio for about a little bit further than that. Nancy and Bill took a break after I think it was 2016 when they went on a break. I think maybe December was the last episode they did, sometime around there. And they never come back since their hiatus. They're supposed to come back, but I think they got sidetracked. Bill does a lot of stuff with the Ancient Aliens, and he's been writing a lot of books. And I spoke to him briefly on his birthday, or actually a little bit past his birthday. I was trying to reach him on his birthday, and I couldn't get a hold of him. And then I called him right before the year ended, and I was like, I got to talk to Bill before the year ends. And I called him, and he randomly picked up, and he was like, hey, Angel, what's going on? And I was like, man, I've been trying to get a hold of you since November. And he's like, well, how you doing? And I wished him a happy birthday, belated birthday. And Bill and Nancy, man, they're special human beings. I love both of them. I really do. They're really, really cool people. And that was a really nice time in space when, we had Art coming right after our show. That was really cool. We were his lead-in shows, Skywatchers Radio and Future Theater.
Yep, and the sad part is Bella Haven came on right after it. And the saddest part about that was that we'd no longer hear from Nancy and Bill, and they are epic. They were epic, and they still are epic. Those people are just genuine, honest to goodness, good folk, and it came through in all the different incarnations of them. I think, if memory serves, Nancy and Bill even came on Skywatchers a few times.
Man, I'll tell you, when I went on a little break from Skywatchers when my mother was not doing well, and I left the show for some time, Nancy filled in, and she was not only a guest when I was on, she did the little part-time co-hosting to help out, and she always was great. I mean, over the years, she's been very close, and sent me Christmas cookies a couple times, and I took some funny pictures and sent it and put it on my Facebook account just to joke around. But they actually were really good cookies. I'm not even going to lie. She baked really good cookies and sent me a whole box. And let's just say she did really, really well with the cookies, and she contributed to the obesity that I am now getting rid of.
Absolutely lovely people. Absolutely lovely people.
Oh, love them. But times have come and gone, and they've completely have gone and done their own thing. Unfortunately, I do miss that time. I miss having Art on. Unfortunately, he's gone also, and we're never going to get him back. But the beat goes on and on and on and on. So let's move on to other topics, because it's already midnight, and I do want to get to a couple other things which we haven't really got to before we end this show here. Check this out. I wanted to address the State of the Union real quick. Did you guys catch the State of the Union with the president recently?
No, I was working that night, day, whatever.
Working that day? Okay. The reason I say that is because I want to drive everybody to the website, angelespino.com, and check out the link that says State of the Union 2020 Shocking Exchanges Caught with Lip Reading. And you'll be very, very shocked at what you're going to see on there. The whole Congress got recorded during the State of the Union before the president comes out. And, they went around with the cameras, and, you can't hear what's going on. You can just kind of hear chatter and noise. Well, there's a few folks that figured out exactly what was being said with, looking at the lips, and they know how to lip read, and kind of a funny voice kind of like shifted in the hearings, where he did a little funny phone call. Remember the fake phone call? Where he did the mobster voice and did little, voice characters. Well, they did that to the Congress people, but actually doing the words that were coming out of their mouth. And when you see it, you're going to be shocked at some of the stuff that was happening. Even Nancy at one point uses the term coup d'etat. Now, Kaiser, I know you know what that means.
Coup d'etat. It's the three legs of a coup stool. Money, military, and media. They control the money in the media. They don't control the military. That's the reason why their coup failed. But that goes into depth of perspective that I have, that a lot of people on your network don't understand. But yeah, it was definitely a attempted coup d'etat.
Yep. It means treason, and the way she addresses it is to Mike Pence, and it makes you really think, is Mike Pence really all pro-Trump, or is he maybe a mole? I'm talking about the vice president, Mike Pence.
No, he's not a mole, but here's the thing, is he is a classic Republican, a neocon, And two things that are wrong with the Republican Party are the neocons. And, well, I shouldn't say the Republican Party because it's with our politics. You have the neocons and the neo-progs. Hillary Clinton's an example of a neo-prog, progressive, with all the wars she started. And Pence and Romney, they're typical neocons. So they are examples of chicken hawks, all of them. They'd never send their own kids to war, but they want you to send yours. And that's all I have to say on that.
Thank you.
Amen to that. So check that out on the website. Guys, it's midnight, and we got to get this skedaddling. So Kaiser, again, Kaiser's Korner, starting at 10:30 every week on Sunday for about 30, right?
Sounds good to me.
About 30? Is that correct?
Yeah, it sounds good to me. Yeah.
All right, so we're doing about 30. And, it's going to start next week. We're going to have Dr. Joseph Mera again. Guys, please come back and join us. And we're going to have a whole lot of fun this year. So, till next week, this is, again, inside the Jackals Cabeza. See, I was trying to go Spanish there, and I kind of like fumbled my words. But this is inside the Jackal's head on PSN Radio. And go to the website, angelespino.com. The podcast will be up there pretty soon. Bookmark it if you haven't. The episode will be on the YouTube page also. You can find it very simply by going to YouTube and looking up Inside the Jackal's Head. Or if you go to the main website, the YouTube link is right on there. And the podcast will be there and in the SoundCloud if you missed the episode. If you missed the episode, you're not going to hear this. I don't know how that would work. But anyway, bookmark the SoundCloud page. Give me a thumbs up and a subscribe and all that good stuff on the YouTube. Guys, we'll be back next week with more episode and more talk. And hopefully, more chatter from the guys on the line here, like Brandon. Good job today. I'm really proud of you.
I appreciate that, man.
Good. You're getting better too. I come in on and joining the conversation when I ask you questions. We went from like 5 seconds to like 3.5. You're doing better, my friend. Guys, we'll catch you next week.